good. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Earlier, our plan is to kind of talk about our 0.5 release and demo some of the cool features that we shipped. I'm just trying to see if anyone interested in kind of knowing the entire demo or just concentrate on the new features. What do you prefer? With Deepak.
Yes, Arshad, I would prefer an entire demo, but I've been playing with it. But hearing from you guys will be beneficial if that's possible.
Okay, sounds good. So how about we start with kind of a UI demo, and we can kind of walk into that through the what we shipped, and then we go into more details of each page that we developed. Sounds good?
Sounds great.
Okay. Ashit, do you want to go kind of give the UI demo first, and then we can talk about what we shipping?
Yeah, sure. Let me just share my screen. Yeah, I'll need screen sharing.
Oh, yeah, try now.
Yeah. Okay. So, yep. Is it visible?
Yes, we can see it.
Nice. Okay. So let's start with our roadmap, basically. So basically, these are the things that we implemented in our release 0.5. So let's start with the new services that we added and new features that we added to the existing entities. So speaking of services, we have added pipeline service that in 0.5 release. So this is the pipeline service listing page, and going to the simple airflow. This is how we are listing all the pipeline tasks for now. We'll have the owner if they have set at any, and if there are any tags, then they'll appear here. And this is the pipeline service. These are the different pipelines here, and each pipeline will have a set of tasks that are external URLs.
So some context, earlier till 0.4, we supported tables, dashboards, topics as the first class entities. In 0.5 release, we added the pipelines as another entity that we support. And one of the integration that we did is through Airflow. Airflow is one of the popular workflow ETL tooling scheduler. So we decided to kind of integrate with Airflow first. So when you configure Airflow, we ship a Airflow lineage backend that actually gathers all the metadata about the workflows and ships it to OpenMetadata through the APIs. And from there, in the UI, we actually display all the rich details about the ETL itself, like what is the pipeline, what is the start date, who is the owner, what are the tasks within the pipeline that we have, and and also we gather lineage as well, which we'll demo a little later. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the, okay, it's not set up on my local. So, yeah, basically this is the pipe. And
click the dim product ETL at the top.
Yeah, no, you can go to
Airflow URL. Yeah.
No, this is a sample data. If you go to the local, go to the Explorer, Ash. Click the pipelines once. Yeah, you can look at the fact order and sales ETL, the fourth one. So some of the data in the sandbox is sample data versus the live data. This is the live data. So you can click on the either task name or, yeah.
Right.
So this is a ETL that is generating the fact order and sales table, and the live view of the ETL itself.
Yeah, and this is the task URL. So basically, whatever tasks that are, whatever pipelines that this task is instance of. Yeah. Moving forward to the lineage and data profiler thing.
Does this have lineage? Can you click on lineage here?
This also has the lineage.
So this shows the lineage for the pipeline. So constructing lineage information is going to be challenging, right? Underlying systems need to provide this information. So Airflow does. And so in case of Airflow, we have raw customer and raw order. Those are input data sets to this ETL pipeline. And then this ETL pipeline is generating fact sale and fact order. So you have lineage information for the pipelines.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the lineage for pipeline, and the upstream that we are seeing here, that is a data set, basically a table. Let's move to a Go customer. So basically, for dataset page, this release consists of 3 updates, 2 implementations of these 2 tabs, and implementing the complex data types into this schema. So earlier we just had basic data types like string, integer, etc. But we are also supporting array and struct. So if this customer here is a type of complex data type that itself has a number of columns in it. So this is how we are supporting it. It is expandable, collapsible, and the type will be visible like this if there are more than a few characters in it.
Yeah, some kind of context around here as well. So earlier, like we need to get all the data that is coming from various data sources, Redshift, Snowflake, Hive, whatnot, right? So we use those data that is coming from the databases and map it to standard types with its mention in the open metadata. So for example, in case of data types such as varchar, it will map to a string. Number maps to an integer kind of thing. So what we did in 0.5 release is we want to capture the raw data type, including the complex data types as well. So one of the complex data type could be a struct of struct, right? And we captured that through the ingestion process. We made a lot of changes there. And how do we fetch the raw data types and how do we parse that and publish that information back into open metadata through the APIs itself. And UI becomes kind of much more richer experience now. So if you have a raw data type, like a struct in this case, a record of it, you can expand that and look at the entire structure of the column. And even more details, such as you can add for each of those nested columns, you can add descriptions, tags. Now, the way you capture the metadata for a nested columns become much more richer, and anyone looking like a data analyst or whatnot who's trying to understand this will get much more detail for each of those nested fields as well. And you could, this particular thing will work with search and other explore options as well. Go ahead, Raj.
Yeah. Okay. Moving forward to data profiler tab.
Yeah, let me give a little more details here. So earlier in 0.4 in the announcement, we talked about data profiler. So at that time, what we did is through the ingestion process, while we're collecting the metadata, we can run a profiler on the tables and collect rich information about how the data looks like. What are the min max details of that, and what is the row count per day that it is getting each table. And we shipped a earlier feature where you could see at the top number of rows, number of columns, how many rows are kind of generating per each day based on the data profiler information. And with this release, we kind of took the next level of step, which is you want to go much more richer experience from the UI itself. Like as the owner of this table, as the user of this table, you come in and you can discover, hey, how many rows I'm actually getting into this table every day? Is it any dips happening or is it continuing to grow? And secondly, hey, I mentioned this column supposed to be a distinct. Is it really distinct in reality? This usually happens where you can assume the distinct, but the ETLs can make mistakes or have bugs where you can increase the duplicate rows. So from the user's perspective, from the user owner perspective, you can actually look at this and understand how your table is doing. What is the distribution of this? So this is a stepping stone to data quality itself. So from here, we will kick off much more major features such as, hey, this particular column should be in this range. That is how my assumption is, how I'm generating the reports and dashboards, and you can click and add a test. So that's the level of experience that we are going forward. But this itself kind of gives you overall prospect of the table itself, how it's looking, how it's doing over a period of time.
Ashit, can you hover over some of those charts just to show you can look at various values on each of those days, right? What it was. So I think let's map it to a few examples. Okay, you're looking at the rows, right? And in the chart, suddenly on a daily basis, rows are within certain range, and then suddenly on one day, the number of rows completely dropped. Okay, that could indicate that maybe in reality the rows dropped, or it could also indicate that some ingestion hasn't happened and there is missing data. So you would use just rows alone visually to understand the data flow into the table and be able to figure out if there is any missing data. And you can also, as Harsha was saying, you can turn this into the number of rows is within this range, within the standard deviation, and if it changes, alert me, right? That could be a missing data. Let's look at distinct ratio, right? There should not be duplicates. There should not be, multiple records of the same thing, because if you're calculating, let's say, total amount paid, you are now calculating the wrong amount, right? So distinct ratio, for example, at Uber, we would, keep it to 0.1% or something like that, right? And that way, if there are too many duplicate rows beyond whatever threshold you configured, one, visually you can see that is happening here. Second, you can turn it into, in the future, some quality tests. Let's look at null ratio. This is another problem for data quality. You expect a column to be not null, right? And you are making all these queries assuming that this will not be null, but then somebody started writing null values, and all your compute that you're doing is affected because of that, and you're coming up with wrong answers. So null ratio is something that you can see visually to understand something happened on a day where there were a lot of nulls were written. Second, you can convert it into, in the future, I'd want null percentage to be 0.1, right? And then alert me if it goes above that. Those are the ways that you would use this. And then finally, min max is a way where you can say, first you can look at what is min max. I'll give you a typical example. So at Uber, we had a data quality issue where the number of drivers in a trip was -1, right? You cannot have a trip without a driver, and -1 doesn't make any sense. We could catch those things very easily here because min became -1. Now you can also say, I want this range to be 1 and 1 only, or 1 to 10, things like that. And so this is an intuitive way of understanding the data and turning those understanding into checks, right? So that's the whole idea here.
I want to actually address some of the questions raised in the Zoom chat, Deepak. You can stop us anytime and ask the question. But I'll read it. For datasets that are created by the system that do not provide lineage, can I manually add lineage information myself? Yes. So, yeah, go ahead, Suresh.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what we're going for. So lineage capturing of lineage traditionally in these systems is always challenging, right? So we build an API, first class API, where you can capture the lineage between the entities. So the way the lineage capture right now works is through the APIs itself. So Airflow is sending this information through the APIs, and we're capturing that and storing it on the OpenMetadata side. Similarly, you can use these APIs to build your own tooling manually or whatnot. you can publish this information between any entities within the open metadata.
Cool.
So,
Thank
so I would, in fact, I would go further ahead and say there are three ways, right? Lineage information is provided by the systems that we are integrating with. We get them in as metadata.
Mhm.
Then lineage information, you have your own, tooling. Let's say you captured it somewhere and you have this insight. You can publish it through API.
Yeah.
Finally, most importantly, where lineage information is not available, or the information that in an automated way that is collected is incorrect. Users should be able to, one, correct the information that the system has. Two, they can add their own lineage information. So what we would do is go to the lineage link. Yeah. So what we would do is we would add some functionality where you should be able to click the edges and then expand it and add user generated information, right? One is edge, you can add a description on whatever it means, right? This data is consumed on a daily basis by this edge, right? For this pipeline or something like that.
Yeah.
Second thing is you can expand raw customer and then dim customer, and then it will expand and give you all the columns, right?
Mhm.
And those columns, if the column names are the same, you should be, we will, provide you lines and you can say, yeah, this edge makes sense. This is the column level lineage. Or you can draw from one column to another column. This is the, column here, which is different name. And then here is how it is connected, and it's the source of the downstream column. That is what we'll start going towards. So few other things, right? Lineage itself is a very rich UI through which you can do a lot of things. For example, you're a dim customer owner, right? Or you consume dim customer to generate a report critical for the business. You should be able to write from here, say, make me follower of all the upstream entities, right? One shot. That way you get alerted of all the challenges, problems that might be happening upstream. That way you are, keeping in touch with, the issues that could cause problems for your own delivery of your, reports or things like that. So those are all the things that we'll start moving towards. So lineage becomes a rich canvas to start many, many different actions from.
Thanks, sir. Suresh. That's very helpful. Yeah, that's exactly what I was expecting. This is just an early look, but there's a lot of things you could do on top of this.
Yeah, this is the most basic. We don't even tell you what is an ETL and what is an asset here. Everything is based on naming conventions. So we'll start making this richer and richer.
Yeah,
so
good
it's going to
start.
be an iterative process, and a lot of work will go into it every release.
Yeah. Second question, profiler history. Does the information get collected daily and kept forever? Does the row count ignore nulls? I'll take a stab at it. So we do keep the information that is collected daily and kept forever right now, but our idea is to roll out that history every 30 days. And here we would like to hear the community feedback and see, like, do you want this to be? I mean, I can see the definitely benefit of keeping it forever to an extent, but we need to look at scalability aspect of this as well. So we wanted to keep it for 30 and roll out to some other table so that in case of audits, you can look at it.
So the reason,
go ahead.
The reason I asked that question was, from my experience, it's useful to have that information configurable. Because then, some systems I want to know for 60 days, some I don't really care, like 2 days is enough, things like that. So if it's configurable, that'll be really great. The other one is if it's a lot of information in that particular in that particular UI, it can get unwieldy. So then, when you expand that thing, if you have keeping for 60 days, then you have 60 rows, and it really becomes a difficult user experience. So from that perspective, I would think, how would you manage that? You might want to pop me out into a separate place to explore that aspect, because that could also become a richer.
That's a great comment. So we popping out few things here. One is too much information can be bad. Second, it takes you away from real information, right? Your attention away. Couple of things that we are thinking. One is there are a lot of things like this that we are collecting, which can grow over time. We are looking at the usage stats, right? Today we are looking at how many queries were run and things like that, and this we are collecting on a daily basis. profiling information we are collecting on a daily basis. And our goal is, our current thought is to keep only last 30 days. And then anything that is older, push it out of the system, possibly into a log, right? Where, you have historical data, or even possibly push it into a warehouse table, right? So that you can go run a query on that and, or push it into an S3 bucket, and then you can use it as an external table, right? And then process it if you want. Those are the things that we are thinking of. Any input there would be super useful. In there we can make it configurable, right? You just say, hey, here is where we dump it, and then you can use it this way.
Yeah. In that case, then you might want to just allow me to configure, hey, dump it to S3 or something, and then I will set my TTL there and manage it that way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the last question, can I hook up alerts on top of this profiler? Example, row count less than 1,000 alert, null ratio greater than 0.5 alert. Exactly, that's pretty much what we are going as the next step. And we are kind of aiming to try to release 8.6, at least the backend integration. But the UI integration will be coming soon as well. So this is definitely the right way we are going.
Sounds great.
Yeah, so I think there is a combination of tests and triggers there, right? You could have this is some information generated by profiler. As we start adding test kind of metadata, tests also generate test results, right? All of this is data. That data can be used to set up triggers, right? And some tests might come with automatic triggers, right, to alert people. Those are user experiences that we'll think through, but definitely you should be able to get alerts out of the data that is collected.
Sounds great. I think, Suresh, you answered that. Just when I typed it, you were talking about it. So
okay. That's the kind of questions we like.
it's staged.
It's we understand our users. That's what it says.
Yeah.
All right. Ashit.
Yeah, so I think Suresh and Harsha explained this tab very clearly. Yep, I guess basically these were the major features that we implemented in last release. Also, we have the release logs here with all new features of each release. We had 0.4 last time. Now we have added for 0.5 as well. And here are the change logs for whatever new things that we added. So yeah, in these services, we added 2 new connectors, Trino and Redash. And this is still in progress, the Amazon Blue. Yeah, pipeline we went through. The other things we have.
You want to show the follow button and also
yes.
the search matching the column names?
Yes. So here are few enhancements that we did in this release. One is we already had this follow button, but there were no list of followers. So now, as I have followed it, if I'll check, this will have my name. If there are other users accessing this entity, if they'll check this
You
out,
can go to sales. I think you have more. Sales table, yes, the first one.
Yeah. So like we can see, there are 4 followers here. So we have maintained this list for 20 users, and above that, if there are more than 20 users, we just give a view more button that will expand a modal with all the followers that it has in the same fashion. So you can check out what all users are following this entity. Yep. So that's it about the follow thing.
So few things, right? that itself can be an interesting collaboration point. So you can look at all the followers and then maybe send a message to them saying, something is changing with the data, right? Announcements can become a lot better, right? Instead of, sending it to everybody and then nobody is looking at it and that kind of stuff. So there are some interesting possibilities there for us to explore.
Yeah. Ashit, can you search for order in the search box? And enter. Enter, don't click enter. Yeah. So here we also, previously you can get this highlighting effect where, matching text clearly shown what actually matching. In this release, we actually looking at the descriptions, column names, and everything else. So you will see what matched that is not visible within the search card. So if you're searching for a column, you can actually clearly see what's happening here in the search experience.
Yep. So this is one more thing that we added. We can also get the searches in column description as well. Description, column names, column descriptions, and whatever fields that are matching in the Elasticsearch that are not visible here will be listed below. And whatever text that is matching in the entity title as well as the description text will be highlighted here. So that's for the search part. Also, we added one more thing in the services listing page. Earlier, this can be a tedious thing if there are too many services. Let's say 100 or 150 services are there. So it will be hard for anyone to go through all the service and search for the one service that they need. So this search bar we have added that will filter out the service by name. For now, we have just kept it by name. In future iterations, we can implement this search for description or the type based on other fields.
This came as a result of Harsha's scalability test. He added, 1,000 database services to create 1 million, plus tables. And then we came over here and then this was just boxes after boxes. I hope no company has to use this search bar and have those many services because something is wrong if they're using it. But if they do, they have a way to search for it.
Have you considered showing this information in tabular form? That way it's less jarring as the boxes don't move around.
Yeah. I think we will. One of the thoughts that I have is it should just look like Explore. Okay, go to Explore. So this is something that we have done in the past. So we are stuck in that
Right,
service
yeah.
being a box. We should just show everything in the consistent format, right? So we will turn it into these kind of boxes so that once your eyes are used to these kind of boxes, now you don't have to adjust it for a smaller box. So that's a change that we will do. There are a few things that we also need to do. Go to the services page. Today, that ingestion is not set up, or there's bunch of information that we can provide here, right, for people to take a look at, and if the ingestion has run last time or not, and all of those things. So the horizontal bar would be better there. So yeah, definitely.
Cool.
I think, yeah, that covers pretty much what we shipped overall at a high level, the features.
I think we covered the product demo quite well, no? Do we need to go back to that? Probably we, yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Vivek? Do you want to see any other aspects of things that are not clear?
We mentioned the way of showing the information there. That specific way. We could just give these both options to the user. We just create a button in whichever way they want to see the information they could see.
Customizing for users?
Yeah, users first. Means this box and the other from the services page that we see, the way of showing the information. We could use either way, or we could give this option to the user.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, right? It's like I call it as a Starbucks experience. You go there, there are 20 things, like finally I say, just give me regular coffee, okay? So I think making
Okay.
definitely, customization versus choices, right? That are look like choices, but they are probably not that helpful. Do you think, giving that choice would be useful? Like you would want to see it this way versus another way, or it's just
This is compact. In the sense, what I wanted to say is we can have a compact view and we can have a discrete view.
got it, got
Yeah.
it. Oh, that makes sense actually, where you don't provide a lot of description and things like that. It's just yeah, that makes good sense. Let me write it down.
Yes. Okay. And then we go back to the follow page, follow option that we just added in this feature. And we go back to the follow one that we were using. Is there a way to broadcast information to any followers?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about right now. This one is see who your followers are.
Yes. Yes.
Next step is communicate with these followers, right?
Okay. So that option would be within this
Yeah,
top
we,
that
we,
option.
we are, I think this requires a bit more thinking. One of the frequent problems that people have is they're changing table in certain way and they want to tell people that this table is going
That's
to
correct.
change, right?
Right. Right.
And to the followers, sending that information makes sense, but then some people may not be following, right, the table, and then you may not be able to communicate that announcement to them. So a bit more thinking is required, but
Right.
definitely being able to communicate with people who are following this
Yes.
is a critical feature. Yes.
So we can do something like GitHub does. So we could watch it in certain ways. If we want any changes, we could propagate that to the user. If they don't want to follow the changes, they have the option of not following that.
Yeah, that actually, our I don't know, our star might look very similar to GitHub star.
No, it's okay. It's okay. That's a good feature actually. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's not a bad thing.
No, I mean, so that is what we were thinking. So definitely that comment makes a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah. That's it for now. You can continue.
Any other questions? Do you want to go through the entire product? We can actually do one more probably in next weekly meeting from kind of top down, explain from how the product looks like. Probably it will take a lot more and we can structure it better then.
Yeah, sounds good. I will be playing more by then. So this is good information for me at this point.
No. Awesome.
So Vivek, you had a comment. Let's talk about that, which is, can you guys show the APIs, right? Along with these dataset pages.
A comment. Yeah, exactly. I can talk about that if you guys like.
Yeah. No, that would be awesome.
Sure. So I was thinking mostly from, at OpenGo, we have a lot of data sets, right? So one of the things that, and I've seen this in other companies that I work with, is that we start developing these APIs and then we start exposing these through the catalog like this. We're not using anything right now. But one of the frequent needs for any of these is like, how do I speed up my development team? How do I increase the developer velocity? So we end up writing a lot of docs and we have the API docs, etc. What I thought like it would be much more productive if, let's say I'm a Java programmer, I'm writing a business service and I'm going to use these 3 data sets. I want to quickly get to developing those things instead of going through the documentation, figuring out the URLs and everything. I think you already have all the information here. For like, if you look at the sales data set, I would probably imagine like something like, again, this is just thinking out of the, brainstorming here, is like an API tab, just like you have manage tab, an API tab, and then expose all potential APIs available for the data set. So I can just maybe even have scripts or even snippets or whatever, and I can just to begin with, just give me the URL is good enough, for me, instead of me manually constructing it, looking at the documentation. So I think there's an opportunity here to make the developer productivity and developer experience much richer, and maybe position it in a way where, hey, you adopt this, you can actually start your development very fast, because you're not going to be, in the traditional way, you're not doing that kind of an approach. So that was my thought.
No, that makes a lot of sense. The reason why I asked was, yesterday I was not sure whether you were talking about the metadata or data, right?
No.
And
that
today
that I saw the APIs. I think that's fine. That's pretty rich enough. I was talking about once you get beyond that, this is for the consumers of the data set. Like what APIs can we expose?
Correct. And today we were talking to a company and they were asking, how are you getting this information? Can I push this information myself? Can I use this information? And I was, thinking of your question, and I was telling Harsha that, do you want to embed this information in your application, in your script? Here is a URL, boom, right? And just give it to them.
Exactly.
Right? So makes a lot of sense. And that makes, given our main goal is to make metadata shareable. The sharing experience becomes a lot easier if there is an API and then people can just, click that and then look at it in a URL, on a web page, and then embed it into their script and
exactly.
So, great suggestion. By the way, I called you Vivek, because I was talking to somebody else.
That's fine. People call me all kind of names.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will call you Deepak.
We will all be Viveks. I like Vivek. We will all be Viveks.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
No coffee yet.
Yeah, I understand that.
And any other things that we want to cover, Harsha?
Yeah, I think in terms of 0.5 release, this covers it. But we are really excited about 0.6 release. We're not going to stop here, and we're going to keep churning out releases. What we are excited personally is like awesome work done by Suresh, which is the versioning, as well as the metadata event change. Yeah, I'm super excited about that to come to the UI and kind of everyone to consume. I think that will kind of change the product quite a bit and kick it to next level. Suresh, do you want to add?
Yeah. So what we'll do is, okay. So let me tell the story about this versioning, right? Somebody changed the description, somebody added a tag, some columns changed. Over a period of time, metadata changes, right? There is no history of how metadata has changed, right? In any organization, right? Unless you go look at maybe some GitHub commit was there or some things like that, which is just partial. What we want to do is we want to keep track of the version changes as the technical metadata changes based on the information we are collecting from different sources. Then users interact and they are changing the metadata, adding description tags and things like that. Through all of these things, we want to keep a versioned metadata for each of the entities, right? And two things, right? One is a version change that is backward compatible. You add a description, you add a tag and things like that. Nothing related to the data really breaks, right? And then there are version changes that cause problems downstream, right? Somebody is removing a column. You don't know who is using that column. So they removed the column and we want to change the version to reflect that. So right now what we are thinking is versioning will be numbered starting from 0.1. And all backward compatible changes will make 0.1 increment, right? So it goes from 0.1 to 0.2, 0.2 to 0.3. Just like regular software versioning, if there is a backward incompatible change, it will go from 0.3 to 1.3, right? It will bump up by 1.0, that is backward incompatible change. And this we will collect. Then what we'll give is some kind of like a time machine kind of an experience where you can actually look at all the changes that have happened from version to version to version. That visualization will come through, right to the left of that manage there will be a tab called versions, and then you can look at the versions. And then maybe if you become even more adventurous at some future point in time, a git blame kind of experience where, who has made the change, right, to what metadata, that might also be available. But, that's what we are thinking. So what do you guys think?
So what I understood was, so there's like, maybe I can classify the changes into breaking changes and non-breaking changes, right? So breaking changes increment the major version, and the non-breaking ones will increment minor version.
Yeah.
Now, even within those two kind of classification, do we have a third one where you're making incremental changes, but it's not breaking, meaning you're adding a column, maybe it doesn't really break it.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if using the semantic versioning is a better model than you have three, dot to really think about major, minor, and then patch. And then anything, for example, I just go and change the description and say, oh, this one doesn't have description, event ID is blah, 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 right? That's a minor change. Do you want to even track to that level of granularity, or just those thoughts are emerging in my mind when I heard you.
Yeah, so the reason why description changes make sense is some people, let's say, made a description change that was
it makes sense.
worsened,
Yeah,
right? You can revert it, right? Yeah, I did think about major, minor, and patch. Then decided that let's keep it simple, major and minor, right? Minor changes are benign changes, and then few things, right? Backward compatibility, the only case where I see backward compatibility right now, I have not thought through a lot, but because of tables, if a column is being deleted, now if a column data type changes in backend schema, we don't say it is the same column, right? Column A, which is int, and a column A, which is a string. Int is different from string, and so we delete int and we add a string, okay? So that is both addition and deletion. So right now, deletion is the only backward incompatible change, right? Addition is not backward incompatible change. But where we think we will do few other things is versioning now results in, it will tell you this has changed between this version to this version.
Mm-hmm.
And that will generate an event.
Yeah.
Then we can start writing some bots, that kind of stuff, workflows that take version change event, and then they can do very interesting things, right? For somebody, maybe column being added is something that he wants to be notified about. Column deletion, everybody should be notified about. Maybe tag got added, and then somebody can have tag PII got added, and I'm a legal guy and I need to look at it. So you can do very interesting things externally if you can capture this changed and this change from this to this, then we can start writing bots. That automation is what this becomes basis of, that I'm excited about.
Makes sense.
Any other comments?
I think there is a question on the chat. I'll read it. How can we reconcile metadata schema versioning versus entities versioning?
Metadata schema versioning. When you say metadata schema versioning, you are talking about the source system where the schemas are versioned? You can speak up. I think, we can keep it as.
Mohammed, I think you're on mute in case if you're speaking.
Let me see if he's on mute. I think he might have dropped off now.
You can see on Zoom, but can.
Yeah, I cannot see him on Zoom. So I think, assuming that it is schema versioning on the source side. So yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question. So what we are versioning is the metadata of an entity. Okay. So there is no specific entities versioning. When the metadata associated with an entity is changed, we are changing the version, right? Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions, guys? So do you want to just put up the roadmap for 0.6?
Yeah, Ashit, do you want to open the blog at OpenMetadata? We talked about that, not the roadmap. I think this is probably slightly older. We need to update it.
Yeah, we have inconsistent
Blog at OpenMetadata. Okay.
This one.
Yeah, go to that and click on the block, the latest one we talked about. Just click on the block. Yeah. Yeah. Open the first link. Open the first link.
No, not that one. Go
Title.
to OpenMetadata. Yeah, title. Clearly, developers don't care about blocks. That's they care
If you
about
scroll down,
getting stuff. Go
yeah,
down.
scroll down
Go.
all the way down. Yeah. No, there is a 0.6
Go.
release.
Go up. Yeah.
Plan for.
Okay, so we call it as entity versioning here. So we will then use the word entity versioning to say it is versioning of metadata of an entity. I think the third one is we talked about eventing framework entity versioning. Slightly scroll down, one click ingestion pipeline deployment. Today, you add a service, you get the ingestion schedule, you have to manually start all this ingestion. We are planning to have, okay, one thing that we have done is we have chosen Apache Airflow as a workflow engine for us to run all our ingestion, data profiling, tomorrow data quality, all of those automation jobs will run on Airflow. And then what this feature is trying to do is if you configure a service and add ingestion schedule, automatically we will kick off the ingestion jobs based on the schedule that you have instead of you having to manually take that information and then generate configuration and set up ingestion. And this becomes the basis of all the automation workflows in the future where we'll create an automation workflow, right? Airflow DAG, and then push it to Airflow, and automatically those things will kick off. A few things will start happening based on that. The thing that you are seeing where Apache Airflow, the entity, you clicked and then you went to Airflow to look at all the information, right? We'll collect that information as metadata and then directly put it under services on what in this Airflow, what jobs are running and what jobs are related to, our ingestion profiling and things like that. So you get a view of how it is running. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I think we have around 9 minutes left. If there are any questions, anything to do with OpenMetadata, I will be happy to answer.
Yeah, hi. Actually, I got a question. If at some point we need to ingest any kind of metadata for services that are custom built, like be it pipelines, dashboards, tables, anything that it makes sense to have it described as an entity level, but there's not an explicit connector because it's something custom, would it make sense then to try to have any kind of wrapper on top of the API to kind of ease in this ingestion? Because I've seen that already in the ingestion package, we have a ton of utilities to put and patch and get all of this. So might it make sense to try to extend it a bit more with a proper interface and also kind of publish it as a utility that I want to put the data from my machine learning model and I can just call this package, pass it my entity definition, and then that's it.
That's a great idea. Actually, we should, it will be great if you can file the ticket. And I think the idea, if I get it right, like something like an open metadata dash base package that contains the generated code along with our utilities, and you can write your own source, sync, and publish it.
Yeah, or even easier than that, just a module that I can import in some kind of script if I want to run it in my CI/CD processes, so that I can say from metadata import, put model and just pass it, so that then I can read my data. Some teams will have it in YAML format, some others in JSON, some others are just hard coding it into whatever, right? But just to have it already a bit more friendly rather than needing to think, okay, how is this API working for this case? What's the ID of the related service? I don't know.
So let me ask this question differently, right? So right now, if you want to use our APIs, you need to know what is the URL, what is the entity, what is the HTTP request to use, what is the schema, all of those things, right? That's okay for hardcore developers. What you are talking about is packaging them into some kind of a simple client API to say put ship model, right, or publish model. That's it, right?
Yeah.
So they don't need to understand all the nitty-gritty details of all these different endpoints and things like that. That's the client, right? Client that is specifically built for certain use cases. Publish this, that, done, right? Is that what you're talking?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
that
to
makes
ease in a bit other teams and other users that might not be that invested into the tool, but they still want to collaborate into that and to be part of the catalog.
So we have, like, for example, in case of Java, right, we have ended up building a lot of these tests. Now we can actually take some of this client code that we have written, turn it into real clients, right, that are at the next level of abstraction, use it for our testing and publish it for our users. In the same way, we can also organize what we have in the ingestion and package them cleanly so that there are much higher level APIs that are not, REST related, but the higher level APIs, and then package it that way so that other people can use it. Great idea.
Exactly. So, and also I think that there is a lot of utilities in the Java section, but in terms of easy scripting and automation, it might make just a bit more sense to try to complete it from the Python side.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
Great, thanks.
By the way, he is one of the significant external contributors for everybody. So thank you, Per. He moves really fast. So
Yeah, amazing work on the models and also cleaning up the Python linting and all that support that you added there. Thank you.
Thank you. Long weekends.
Hope it's fun.
Yeah, totally.
I hope there are some long nights too in between, because long weekends are very few. I keep pushing him to contribute more. So, I think if there are no other questions, I think we can drop off, go back to our regular days.
Yeah, thanks everyone. This has been a great meeting. This is my first one, so good to catch up.
And Deepak, welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
There is also one more person I saw. I think Mohammed. Yeah, I think his first time.
Is Shannon the same Shannon from MongoDB?
Yes.
All right. You've been quiet. I think I've
just in observation mode right now.
Cool. Are you still with Mongo or are you somewhere else?
I'm not. I'm actually working with Harsha and Suresh a little bit.
Oh, cool. Awesome. All right. Hey, nice meeting you all. Thank you.
Nice meeting
you.
you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Very good week ahead.